First up, we have Cosmog. This mon is probably one of the most broken mons we are actually going to be getting with Regulation G restricted format. This thing has some of the best defense in the entire game, especially paired with the Eviolite. Base 131 special defense and defense with an Eviolite makes this thing probably the most bulky Pokemon in the entire game. Not to mention, this thing has probably the best move pool out of every single Pokemon in the entire game currently, especially out of all the restricteds. No questions asked, this thing's going right up into S tier. This is one of the mons that you're forced to prepare for. If you don't have anything to prepare for Cosmog, it just sits there and it never dies, and it just automatically wins the game for you. That is just one thing that you gotta prepare for right now. No questions asked. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Regulation G regulations rules actually being announced about a week ago, at least when recording this. I want to do a pretty early Regulation G tier list for all the current restricted legendaries that are going to be allowed when it actually drops on the ranked ladder at the end of April. So we're going to be discussing a lot in this video. There's not going to be too much on screen. It's mainly like the list, so I might just throw some gameplay or something in the background for you guys. 100% opinionated list. If you guys want to throw your own list in the comments down below, if I forget to talk about something or I skim over something, let me know as well. Really appreciate it. I'm not going to waste any more of your guys' time. Let's hop right into this. I'll throw the list on screen for you guys right now. This is the list we're going to have. The S tier is the stuff that's like the stuff you're forced to prepare for. This is the best of the best stuff that you're going to be seeing on like every single team, and is the stuff that you have to have checks for and you have to team build for. Otherwise, you kind of automatically just lose to it most of the time. That's kind of the S tier stuff. A plus tier is the stuff that's really, really good. It's the stuff you don't really need like have like specific checks for it, but like it's just stuff that's incredibly good, like borderline like meta type stuff. You could argue probably even some of the stuff in A plus tier could be like S tier. You could probably argue that sometimes. A tier is just your average stuff. Nothing crazy, nothing bad, just your average tier type stuff. B tier is kind of more below average. C is getting kind of situational tier. D tier is the stuff that there's not really much reason to use it, maybe apart from like one or two specific things. And then F tier is the stuff that you're not going to be using at all. This is stuff that you're going to be using if you just want to throw your matches. Or if you have no idea what you're doing, or you're just trying to play a meme team, or whatever it may be. So, kicking this off, before we get into this as well, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. It really helps out the videos and really helps out the channel. I really appreciate it, and I'll keep on bringing you guys future videos like this. I do plan on updating this tier list as well once Regulation G just drop officially on the ranked ladder, probably like a week or two after that, once we start getting some meta developments and we have like a lot of the other more of like the better like veteran players and stuff starting to build Regulation G teams and that type of thing once the meta starts developing a lot more. But going based off what we have right now, like I've been playing a lot on the Showdown ladder, same with in-game casual ladder, which is a lot of just Regulation G teams being tested by everybody. So I kind of know what I'm talking about in this, at least from what I've been playing. So I've also been creating a bunch of my own teams. I have like 3-4 teams currently already. So I don't know if you guys have seen them, but when I'm uploading this, see which video goes up first. But if not, there should be already a few of my teams live on the channel if you guys missed them. First up, we have Cosmog. This mon is probably one of the most broken mons we are actually going to be getting with Regulation G restricted format. This thing has some of the best defense in the entire game, especially paired with the Eviolite. Base 131 special defense and defense with an Eviolite makes this thing probably the most bulky Pokemon in the entire game. Not to mention, this thing has probably the best move pool out of every single Pokemon in the entire game currently, especially out of all the restricteds. No questions asked, this thing's going right up into S tier. This is one of the mons that you're forced to prepare for. If you don't have anything to prepare for Cosmog, it just sits there and it never dies, and it just automatically wins the game for you. That is just one thing that you gotta prepare for right now. No questions asked, S tier. Alright, I'll be real with you guys. There's going to be some people that are going to be really pissed. If you're in the comments right now, you're already typing, oh, what the fuck are you doing, bro? What the fuck are you doing? I want to fuck around with you guys. There you go. I'm putting it in F tier. If you guys know what Cosmog does, it has 3 moves. It has Splash, Cosmic Power, and it has Teleport. That's all it has. So it's a mon that legit never dies, but it also can never attack. But at least when we're recording this, I actually have a Cosmog team that somebody actually was ballsy enough to build that I will be featuring for you guys in the near future. So if you guys do not want to miss that, subscribe if you are new, because I have a team built around Cosmog and like a stall team that actually requires like, I think it's like Perish Trap and stuff like that with the Cosmoem on it for Regulation G, and I'm going to be featuring that team hopefully on the channel within the next week or so. So if you guys not want to miss that, subscribe. Apart from that, though, with the memes out of the way, we got Cosmog going right to F tier. It's a worse version even of Cosmog. I don't know why that's even in the game. We got Calyrex by itself. This thing can actually attack you, I think, but like there's no reason to use this thing at all. It has all base 80s apart from HP, which is 100. Why would you ever use Calyrex as your restricted over any other legendary restricted here? I have no idea. Not going to talk about it at all anymore. We have I think this is, I forgot which one this actually, I'm not sure if this is Necrozma Duskmane or Dawn. I think this is actually Duskmane. I think Dawn Wings is the other one. The problem with this one is, like, I don't think it's that good. I'm going to put this one actually in D tier. I do not think Necrozma Duskmane is really that good. I really don't. It's one of those mons that it's really slow against base 77 speed. It has a decent ability in Prisma armor, but like most of the time you're forced to Terra this thing, and like there's just so many better options right now to really use. Actually, I'm going to put it, I'll put it in C tier, because I think in D tier, there's going to be some other restrictions that I think are actually going to be kind of worse than this thing. If you really wanted to use this thing, you can maybe team build around it. You can maybe make it work. I'm not going to put it in D tier. I'll probably throw it in C tier to be a little bit more generous, because there's going to be some stuff in D tier that I think is actually going to be a lot worse. That like there's not really much reason to use it at all. And it's not going to really be in F tier because all the stuff in F tier is legit like garbage. So by default, it's going to be kind of in D tier. Necrozma is one of those mons. I don't know why you would ever use Necrozma. I think the problem with Necrozma is the only reason why is because it's considered a restricted, and there's no reason why you'd ever use this mon as one of your only restricted that you currently get. Maybe when double restricted comes around in like 2 months, maybe you'll see a little bit of Necrozma as like your second restricted on your team, but there's just no reason to use this thing. Why would you ever use Necrozma as your only single restricted? I have no idea at all. Got Necrozma Dawn Wings. I'm going to put this at C tier. I think this was actually a little bit of a better one. I think if you want to use out of both of these, I think you actually use the Dawn Wings a little bit more. It has a little bit better of a typing. It's weak to a lot more. It has some 4 times weaknesses, but like with Terra, you can kind of negate that. And it also has a little bit more going for it over the Duskmane. So if you want to use one out of the Necrozma forms, I think you want to pick Dawn Wings. Apart from that, I just don't think they're really that good, though. I have not really even seen them at all. At least for me, like, I've seen one team with, like, Duskmane, I've seen, like, one other team with Dawn Wings, and both of them did not do really well, so I haven't even ran into Necrozma yet either. I've not even seen a single Necrozma team, nor anybody even trying to build around it, so that's not a good sign. Got Giratina, and then you got Giratina Origin form. These are both really bad mons. I don't know like any reason why you would use Giratina. Maybe in like double restricted, maybe you'll see these once in a while, but the main problem with Origin form as well is you're forced to hold the Grizius Orb, which by default allows you not to hold like another item that you'd rather have. It just buffs your move damage, which being that you're more of a bulky mon anyways, like you usually want to either have like leftovers or like Assault Vest, or I think like any other item would be a lot better, and being restricted and having to hold one of those items for like one of its forms, pretty bad. Or like go look at Giratina's moveset too. Like what does Giratina really do? Like the only main setup move it really has is like Calm Mind, and apart from that it has nothing else. Like it lost Toxic. That was one of the main moves it has, so it can kind of stall people out if it really wanted to. Like what else does this thing really do? It gets Defog for some reason. I have no reason why. Like, I have no idea why this, like what this thing even does. There's just no reason to use Giratina. I'd actually probably put it in F tier. If it wasn't as bad as like some of these F tier mons, I'd probably put it in like F tier for both of these forms, but I gotta put it in kind of D tier because it's not as bad as like Cosmog. Otherwise, I'd kind of be lying to you guys. We got Koraidon. I think Koraidon's A+ tier. I think it's really, really good. Koraidon's going to be another mon. I think that, especially with double restricted, once we go into the double restricted format, this thing's probably going to be one of the best meta mons in the entire game. I think right now it's just being a little bit outshadowed by Groudon, because Groudon's, at least typing wise, and like, I know, I guess you can probably argue like Koraidon and Groudon are kind of the same, because they both do kind of the same thing. They just have a little bit different typings. It's just kind of which one you really want to prefer. The ground typing, at least with like weaknesses and that type of stuff. Like you're only weak to water, which you're in the sun. Like you don't have to really worry about. Then you're only really weak to grass and ice. So, and then you're immune to electric, which I think is a huge plus right now as well, especially with Miraidon being really good. I think that's the main reason why Groudon's a little bit up above Koraidon, because Miraidon is really good right now, and it's a lot better into that. I think that's kind of the one niche Groudon has over Koraidon. But this thing's crazy. I think the most common Terra I've been seeing I've seen Terra Water, I've seen Terra Fire, which I think is the most common one. I've also seen Terra Fairy and a few other Terras on this thing. It gets Swords Dance, it gets crazy good move pool. I don't know, it gets a bunch of really good moves. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do with this thing. Really good mon. I think I'm gonna put it A+ tier for sure. You can probably argue even S tier. There's gonna be some people that argue it probably S tier, and you wouldn't be wrong. At least for me though, I'm gonna put it A+ tier. We got Miraidon. I'm putting this going to be one of our first S tiers. This is probably the best. I don't know. It's probably one of the best mons in the game currently, at least for restricted. Starting out, it is the one mon in the entire game that is the best and probably only like good low electric terrain setter apart from Pincurchin, or like at least with like ability wise that's able to bring up the terrain. There's some other stuff can set up like Thunderous and a bunch of other stuff in the game that gets like electric terrain, but at least like ability wise and like mon wise, it's the best one in the entire game. It also has so many good pairings with like all the Quark Drive mons and that type of thing. It's just incredibly good. You have a bunch of different ways you can run this thing. I've seen like a bunch of like setup type variants. I've seen AV, at least that's the one I've been running. I've been running Assault Vest with like just full on Terra Electric, so you're only weak to ground, which is I think is a really good typing. You're able to just run a pure electric and just shit damage. You got Parabolic Charge, which I think is really good, which makes you kind of unkillable most of the time. And you can kind of pair that alongside some really cool stuff, so you're just able to spam that with like Wide Guard on your side, or like beside a ground type. I think it's really good. Yeah, there's a bunch of ways to run it. I think that's just kind of the main thing with Koraidon. There's so many ways to run it. Like you can run kind of any Terra type on it. You can kind of get away with it. Just incredibly good. So many good things you can pair alongside it. It's one of those mons that you kind of need to have checks for, or like some way to get rid of the electric terrain, or something to outspeed it, or something to kind of deal with it, and that's kind of the main thing. Terapagos, I'm going to put it A tier. I think this thing's... There's going to be some people that argue that I put this thing a little bit too low on this list. I think the main thing that holds Terapagos back is, like, if you don't really set up, like, if you don't set up, your damage numbers really aren't super crazy. Like, you have decent bulk and stuff, but, like, it really requires a lot of setup. And, like, you need to really build a team around Terapagos to enable it to actually do some stuff. I think that's kind of the main thing that's kind of holding it back. It has a lot of upsides, too, because, like, with Stellar Terra, you're able to hit everything for neutral damage, which is really nice. And you also have, like, the Terra Shift, being able to reduce the damage on the first move used, and getting rid of terrain. I think it's weather as well. I think upon Terra, or going Terra, I think could be really good. And it does a decent job of doing that type of stuff, but you get a decent move pool. Like, it's not a crazy move pool, but it's decent. It could use a few other different coverage moves, I think. It's kind of lacking a little bit of the coverage, but I don't know. That's kind of why you have Terra. You don't really need coverage because you hit everything for neutral damage anyways, so that could just be kind of complaining. But I think at least A tier is a solid place for it. Maybe once the format develops a little bit more, we'll see a lot more of it, and once people start building some crazy teams around it. But I think it's just a little bit too team dependent, and it requires a lot of setup for you to actually get going. You need to set up at least like +1, +2, sometimes even like +3 most of the time to start sweeping, like doing solid amounts of damage. Otherwise, like, if your opponent just either sets up faster than you or just keeps on hitting you with like really crazy amounts of damage before you're able to really do anything, that's kind of where it suffers. So got Mewtwo. Man, I love Mewtwo. I think Mewtwo is a really cool mon. I really do, but just not good. This thing has one of the best move pools in the entire game, but like I think the main thing that's just holding it back is a pure Psychic type, which doesn't do anything for this thing in a format that's dominated by Calyrex, Shadow Rider, and Flutter Mane, and a bunch of other stuff that just outspeed it and one-shot it most of the time. And then, like, the only other thing, too, is, like, its abilities just don't do anything for it. Like, it has Pressure and an Unnerve. Like, those are two of the most, like, useless abilities for a Legend, I think, like, out of the entire cast of Restricteds currently. So, I think what they need to do going forward, I think they need to give a third ability to Mewtwo. Like, another new ability, I think, would be really great, because I think it's one of those mons that just... It's been in the game since day one, but, like, it just got power crept. Like, we're almost in Generation 10 now. I think we're finally at the point where I think Mewtwo is just getting really power crept out of the game. with like especially a lot of the other newer legendaries just way better in being introduced, or some of the other ones that are still incredibly good but have also got slight buffs over the years. I don't know. I think it's really good though. Like if somebody really wants to make it work, I would love to see somebody try to make Mewtwo work, because it has really solid stats. It has 130 speed and like it has some really solid offensive stats. It's just not really that bulky, so like you're getting one-shotted by most stuff, and like there's just not really much reason to use it. Like the only thing it really has going for it is it's a crazy good move pool. Like it has incredibly good move pool, but that's about all it really has going for it, unfortunately. And you really, if you want to get rid of the Psychic typing, you're forced to go Terra. And I don't know if it depends most times if you want to waste a Terra on your restricted or waste it for something else. And does it really justify wasting a Terra on Mewtwo? Not sure. I think it's kind of in a bad place right now because like it's in the same format as like Calyrex and like a bunch of other like faster stuff that just destroys it, like Flutter Mane and a few other things, or Shifu, or not sure, or Shifu Dark kind of destroys it. Like Chimpao is really common right now. There's a bunch of other stuff that's kind of destroys this thing. Lugia, I think, is actually in a B tier. I think if you want to make Lugia work, I might as well talk about Ho-Oh as well. I think Ho-Oh is actually going to be a lot better in double restricted, but if you want to make these two mons work, I think they're both decent right now, especially if you pair them alongside, like, I would actually pair Lugia alongside, like Wo-Chen, or even, like some other, like, really good support mon, like a Clefairy would be really good, or some of that type of stuff. Like, there's a lot of different pairings you can actually make with these two, and you can make them work. I think there's just way better options currently than both of these, though. But if you really want to build around Lugia or Ho-Oh, like, you can make them work. I just think they'll be way better in double restricted when you're able to, like, throw another restricted on your team to kind of support them, or have a little bit more options. I think that'd be a little bit better. So you probably won't see much of them till then. There's a lot better options currently. Kyogre's going to A+ tier. Incredibly good. I'm not going to put an S tier because I don't think it's like a must prepare for type mon. Just mainly because it's a little bit on the slower side. Apart from like if they run Choice Scarf or like Tailwind, but I think it's incredibly good. It's one of those mons too that opens up the doors for like so many really good pairings. Like there's a lot of stuff you can really pair with this thing. I think it'll actually even be better in like double restricted too, because you'll be able to pair like a Kyogre alongside like a Palkia or like some other really crazy restricteds that I think can really benefit from the rain, or like some other really cool mods in the game too. There's a lot of really good Swift Swim users and like stuff that really benefits from the rain, or like in like electric types, like Thundurus T is kind of coming back with Kyogre being really good right now as well. So there's a few other like electric types and a few other things. Like imagine pairing this thing alongside like Koraidon, so that way you have Koraidon that's able to spam Thunder and in rain, and then you have the Kyogre just able to sit there and just spam as well, which is crazy. I think that double restrict that'll be busted. I think it's going to be really, really good. It's really good in single, but I think double it'll be even better somehow. But if you want a really good like water type that sets up the rain for you, Kyogre is the one you're going to be looking at. A Groudon, I think I'm going to put Groudon in S tier. I think Groudon's crazy good. I think Groudon right now is probably the best weather setter, at least for sun. There's so many things you can pair alongside this thing, and I think the main thing that has it going and making it really good is it's probably one of the best checks to Miraidon. Like Miraidon, especially a lot of the Groudons are either going like AV, or they're running really bulky, or like more bulky sets to where like you're either forced to Terra the Miraidon, otherwise you get one shot by Precipice Blades, or you just take a shit ton of damage. Like I think that's kind of the reason why I'd probably put it above Koraidon. So really good mon. Just able to spam Precipice Blades. Like you can go Terra Fire or Eruption if you want to run physical or special. You can. Has really good bulk if you want to run more of a bulky set. You get Sword Stance. You get a bunch of other really solid moves. Really good mon. I think Groudon's really good. Plus all the pairings you can pair alongside all the Photosynthesis mons. Walking Wake, a bunch of other really cool stuff you can pair alongside it. Flutter Mane, make them all really, really good. There's also a lot of other like fire types that really benefit from the sun that you're able to just power up and boost, which I think is really good as well. Stuff like Entei, and there's a few other mons that really like the sun and pair really well with Groudon. What else we have? We have Rayquaza. I'm going to put Rayquaza. I think Rayquaza's kind of slept on right now. I really do. I'm going to put it A tier. I think Rayquaza's really slept on. I have not really seen too much of it, like with like the E-Speed Terra Normal stuff. I've ran into it a few times, but most of the times I've won against it. But I think if you really want to run it right now, I think the main reason why you're not seeing it very much is you're wasting a restricted slot on Rayquaza when Dragonite Chien-Pao is still like the same thing, and you can use Dragonite, which has the exact same typing, and it doesn't have as good as stats, but like it still does kind of the same thing, and you don't have to waste a restricted slot on that mon over Rayquaza, and I think that's kind of the main reason why nobody's really trying it as much. I think maybe in double restricted it could be a lot better because you're able to pair it with like Chien-Pao, plus you also have another restrict that you can kind of get like double usage out of, which could be a lot better. I think it's really good though. I think it like Terra Normal. I would just run like Choice Band at the Terra Normal. It's crazy, especially alongside like a Chien-Pao or like there's a few other things I've seen. A really fast like coaching mon, or like I've seen I actually went against a Rayquaza team with like Prankster coaching Riolu with like that would just spam E-Speed. That was fucking crazy. Or like I think it was Dragon's Ascent. There was some other move it had too. I forgot which move it was running, but it was running like Prankster coaching alongside Rayquaza. Like I think it was like Terra Normal Rayquaza, which was crazy. A lot of cool stuff you can do with it. I just think it's kind of underutilized right now because not a lot of people don't want to waste a restricted slot on Rayquaza over like a Dragonite. Kind of sucks. Dialga, I don't think is that good. I'm going to put both the Dialga forms in C tier. These are mons I think are going to be way better once we get double restricted, because I just don't think there's no reason to really use these. Like, the Dragon Steel typing is really good, but at the same time, there's also another really good Dragon Steel type right now that's called Archlodon, which I think is actually way better than both Dialga forms, funny enough, and you don't have to waste a restricted on it, so... If you want to use a Dragon Steel type, just pick Archlodon, go for Archlodon, build around that thing, because I think it's way better and you don't have to waste a slot on that. Got Palkia. We got both Palkia forms. I think both the Palkia forms, I'm going to put them both in B tier. I'm going to put them both in B tier because I think these actually have really solid potential. I think they'll be really good in like restricted as well, paired alongside like a Kyogre. 150 special attack for both of these. One of them, I think this one's base 90, and then the other, I think it's the Lustrous form. I forgot what this form actually currently is, but the other form, the Origin form, it might be. Not sure what the exact form name is, but the fast one, this one has 120. The normal form has base 90 speed. If you really want to use one, I'd use the fast one. I don't know why you'd actually even use the slow one. You could probably argue if I even drop down I could probably even drop down Palkia down to C tier and like the other with the faster form in B tier, because there's not really much reason to use the other slower, not base 90 speed one. But if you want to use Palkia, like the fast form of it, it has base 120 speed, it has 150 special attack, being a water dragon type, which actually is really good offensively. Which is kind of the same typing as Kingdra, and that's kind of why Kingdra is pretty good offensively. It's a really good offensive typing. You got Terra, which you can use. You got Stab, 95 accuracy, 100 base power, spatial rend with a high critical chance, which I think is incredibly good. So you just like some stuff you can pair with this as well with like Dragon Cheer. I think could be really good alongside Palkia. That we have guaranteed crits off of base 100 spatial rend. It has Hydro Pump. It gets Surf. It gets Telepathy, which is also pretty good, which you can kind of build around. Pair it alongside like I don't know, what you really want to pair alongside like Earthquake or whatever, Parabolic Charge. You wouldn't be taking any damage. I don't know, really cool mon. I think this mon has a lot of potential. It's something I want to build around as well. Just haven't really got a chance to build around it yet, at least when recording this, but I think it has a lot of potential, especially if you can throw out the rain. Like, imagine this thing in the rain. It's crazy. Really good. 150 special attack in the rain with like rain boosted Hydro Pump with like maybe even like Terra Water. Like, that's crazy. Then again though, like you'll be just asking yourself, well, why don't I use Kyogre? I don't know, but just mainly because it's faster and it's Palkia, which is a lot cooler. Reshiram's another one. I'm gonna put Reshiram in B tier. I think Reshiram's another mon that I think it's gonna be really, really good in double restricted, because the main problem with Reshiram right now is you're forced to use a shitty Sunsetter with this thing. Kind of the same thing as Palkia if you really want to use a Rainsetter. Like, you can't run Kyogre alongside it because it is a restricted, so you're forced to use Pelipper or Politoed, or just like manually set up the Rain. That's kind of the same case for Reshiram, but I do think Reshiram's incredibly good. It has Blue Flare, which is a 130 base power move that has a 20% chance to burn, coming off a 150 special attack, which is crazy. And I think Terra makes this thing really good as well. Fire Dragon typing is a really good typing. It's a really solid typing, so... Especially like offensively. It's not the greatest defensively, like your neutral to fairy and the you're weak to ground, which Groudon's really common right now. There's a few other things, but like if you have Terra, like you can kind of negate that. So it's a decent move pool. I don't know. I think it's a really solid mon. Reshiram is one of my favorite Gen 5 legendaries, so I'm kind of biased there. I do want to make this thing work. I'm going to try to make a team around this thing eventually for you guys. But I do think it'll be a lot better in double restricted because the main thing that really you want to run with this thing is like a Sunsetter. I think pairing this thing alongside like a Koraidon or even like a Groudon when double restricted actually drops, I think would be fucking crazy. I think that'll be incredibly good. I think right now, actually even like choice specs, like I think the one thing this actually has over like the Palkia form, I think the Palkia form you're actually forced to hold an item. So like with Reshiram, you can actually even run like choice scarf or like choice specs, and base 90 choice scarf really isn't too bad. Even like specs. You'll live a lot of your moves because a lot of stuff you're going to be taking is usually like at least neutral damage. So like a lot of the neutral hits you can take because you have decent bulk, so you're able to probably just like one-shot everything back with the choice specs anyways. Zekrom, this is a really sad one. This is a really sad one. I'm going to put Zekrom in D tier. You know, Zekrom's really unfortunate because I just don't know what it really actually does. Like, I really have no idea why you'd even run this thing, especially when Raging Bolt is in the game, which you don't really need a required, like, a restricted slot for, and, like, it's just kind of the special version of this thing, which I think is even better currently. The main problem with Zekrom, it's mainly a physical attacker, and you're going to be getting Intimidate spam to death. It's base 90 speed, so it's not really that fast. Like, you're forced to Terra it most of the time, and, like, why would you use an electric type right now when Miraidon's currently in the game? And it's just way better. It has the same typing as Miraidon, but just a million times worse. It's a physical variant of Miraidon, mostly, but it's just a million times worse. It's really unfortunate, because I think Zekrom's really, really cool. And maybe you'll see it a little bit in double restricted, but at least for single restricted, at least currently. And probably going forward, you're not going to see it very much, which is really unfortunate. We got Kyurem Black. I'm going to put Kyurem Black in, like, C tier. I'm not going to put it in, like, D tier, because I think if you really want to use it, you can make it work, but it's another one of those mons that it's kind of outshadowed by, like, a lot of other stuff on this list, and there's not really much reason to run it like a restricted form or, like, justify a restricted slot for this thing. First of all, you're either forced to run Clear Amulet, or if you want to run, like, a physical variant, you're forced to run, like, Loaded Dice, because it doesn't really get, like, crazy good, like, physical-type moves. At least, like, Ice-type moves, so... Apart from, I guess, maybe Terra Blast. I don't know. It's one of those mons, it can be good, but like I think it's just a bad format for it. Maybe in double restrict you'll see it a lot more, but if you want to play like an Ice Dragon type that does a similar thing, pick Baxcalibur. I think Baxcalibur could still be pretty good. And Baxcalibur arguably has like even a better ability with like Thermal Exchange. So Kyurem White, on the other hand, I think is a lot better. I think if you want to use Kyurem White, it's actually pretty good on like the Snow Blizzard type teams. I'm actually going to move it to A tier. I think it's actually A tier worthy. 170 special attack, being able to spam Blizzard alongside like a Alolan Ninetales or like whatever else you really want to pair it with. It's actually really good. Plus you have Terra, you can Terra offensively or even defensively, which makes it a lot better. You don't have to worry about it being intimidated, spammed. I think the only thing that kind of holds it back is it's a little bit slow at base 90, but apart from that, I think it's a lot better than Kyurem Black. I think if you want to use one of the Kyurem forms right now, the best one is probably Kyurem White. Then you got normal Kyurem, which is going to go right into D tier. There's no reason to use this thing at all. Why would you ever use Kyurem? I have no idea. There's no reason to use it at all. I'm not going to talk about it very much. That's Solgaleo. I don't think this thing's like really that good. I really don't think it's that good. I'm going to put it in C tier. I think Lunala's arguably probably like a B tier. I don't know. The reason why I'm putting Lunala in B tier is because I think it has a little bit more going for it than like Solgaleo. You're forced to go like a defensive Terra most of the time, but you have a solid ability, you have a really solid move pool. You get Meteor Beam, Moongeist Beam is crazy good. There's a few other things it has really going for it, but I haven't seen it played enough to really put it higher than a B tier. I've ran into it a few times, and most of the times I ran into it, it really didn't do much. Or it like set up a Meteor Beam and then ended up dying the second turn anyways. So probably see a lot more of it. You could probably argue B tier is a little bit too low. I know there's probably going to be some people that say Lunala and B tier is kind of low, but I don't know. I'm going to keep it there for now at least. Got Zacian Sword. I'm going to put Zacian Sword at A+ tier. I think this thing's really underrated right now. Incredibly good. Fairy Steel typing is probably arguably probably the best typing in the entire game. It's incredibly good. You get the +1 attack boost when you go onto the field. You don't get it when you switch out and back in anymore, but like it's incredibly good. You get a really solid move pool. It's one of the only restricted that you can probably like justify running Stellar Terra on, because you don't really need a defensive Terra most of the time because your typing is just so fucking good. That way it even boosts your damage even more upon like even your +1 attack that you usually get. Really good mon. And you have base 148 speed, which outspeeds pretty much everything apart from Calyrex. Incredibly good. Regular Zacian, I'm not even sure the stats on these. I'm going to put them both, like the regular Zacian and the regular Zamazenta in like A tier, because I think they can be good, but like there's not really much reason to use them over their other forms. And actually, I'll probably put I'll put Zamazenta in like the regular Zamazenta in B tier, the regular Zacian at like A tier, and then you got the Zacian, or the Zamazenta Shield in A tier. It's really good. I think the main thing that you're actually seeing with this thing is kind of a better version of Como O with like body press, iron defense. You're able to pair this thing alongside like a Ting Lu, and so like people can't hit you really good on the physical side or like the special side, so you're able to just freely kind of set up. I think it's a really underrated mon. I think if you guys want a really sleeper, I think one of the most underrated sleepers right now currently is, and we'll talk about the other one next, but like one of the currently like super underrated restricted, I think is Zamazenta Shield. I think it's really, really good. If people don't have anything for it, like it's just kind of sets up and sweeps. It's really, really good. Not many people are prepared for it either. It's one of those things that's kind of slipping under the radar currently. Actually, Eternatus. I think Eternatus is actually really, really good. Terra makes this thing really good. It has really solid bulk. Like you have a really solid move pool. It has an incredibly good move pool. Like it has everything you really want. I think Eternatus is another mon that's kind of really slipping under the radar right now. It's a really, really good mon. I think it's poison dragon typing, which I think is really solid. You're neutral to fairy types, but I think the one thing that maybe is kind of holding it back is Groudon's incredibly good. It's on every single team. I think that's kind of the main reason why, but apart from that, like you have Terra for that. So if you really want to go Terra, like you can go Terra Water or like some other Terra to either get hit neutral by ground types or kind of more of a defensive Terra in any way you really want to go. So really cool mon. You also have like Meteor Beam, I think is a really cool set as well. You're able to get the +1, and +1 you hit really, really hard. You guys aren't using Eternatus. I'd love to see some more people using Eternatus. I think it's a really cool underrated mon, similar to the Zamazenta Shield. Last but not least, you guys probably guessed where these ones are both going to go. I'm going to put both Calyrex Ice and Calyrex Shadow both up into S tier. Calyrex Ice has pretty much brought back like the Trick Room variant. I think it's incredibly popular right now, just mainly because Calyrex Ice. So you're seeing like an incredible amount of Trick Room teams or like more bulky teams being played alongside this thing. And then you have the Calyrex Shadow, which the fastest mon in the entire game apart from Regieleki at 150. And it's pretty much a mon that you're forced to either run like Wide Guard or like a Choice Scarfer to outspeed it, like a Scarfer Shifu or something that can outspeed it and one-shot it. Or you're forced to run a defensive Terra of like Terra Normal or Terra Dark to dodge the Ghost or the Psychic type moves. Or like have like also another terrain center because it's usually ran with like Psychic terrain. So you usually got to run like a different terrain center, and that's I think another reason why Miraidon is also really good, because you're able to switch the terrain away from Calyrex, so it's not able to spam Expanding Force. I don't even know why I'm even talking about both of these. They're so fucking busted. Calyrex, I'm going to probably move these both in number 1 and number 2, because they just dictate the entire format right now. Both the Calyrex forms dictate the entire format. Like, the entire format's revolving around pretty much Calyrex, both of the Calyrex forms, and I think Groudon and Miraidon are another 2 mons that you kind of have to have some checks for. But usually the one thing with, like, both of these, like the Miraidon and Groudon, if you have checks for, like, both of the Calyrex forms, a lot of those checks also kind of work on Miraidon and Groudon most of the time. Stuff like Wide Guard and a few other things, so they kind of carry over sometimes most of the time. So I don't know, I wouldn't say you need like specific checks for Miraidon or Groudon. Well, you kind of do for some of them, depending on what variant of what set they're running, but both incredibly good mons. That is the entire list, y'all. If I forgot to mention something or talk about something, let me know in the comments down below. But kind of unfortunate, there's a lot of restricted that I don't think that are really that good. I think a lot of these stuff towards the bottom here, not in the F tier, but like D tier and up to like maybe like B tier, it's gonna be a lot better and like double restricted, unfortunately. Single restricted right now is kind of dominated by like at least about I don't like, I'd say A tier and above pretty much, because like a lot of the stuff below A tier, you just don't really even see that much at all. Maybe once in a while you'll see it, but I haven't really seen a lot of the stuff like in B tier or below very much. Once in a while you'll see a Lugia or like a Palkia or like a Lunala. Lunala you can probably argue probably A tier if you really wanted to, but kind of being dominated by a lot of this stuff. So like what, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 12. 12 out of the like what, 20, 30 like restrictions we have currently being kind of used, and all the other ones you don't really see that much. Kind of sucks. Apart from that, if you guys like the video, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. Got a bunch more stuff on the way. You guys not want to miss. I will be updating this list again. If this video does well, I'll be doing an updated list once Regulation G does drop at the end of April, once it goes under the ranked ladder and that type of thing, and we might be getting some changes, so I'll probably update the list if it does pretty well. Apart from that, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody.